Hello everyone, my name is Silvana. I am a certified functional nutritionist, a PCOS warrior, and a passionate advocate about women's health. On this channel, you may hear me talk about topics such as nutrition, digestion, perimenopause, menopause, and anything really related to women's wellness. This month, however, I wanted to start off with something a little bit unconventional and a little bit special. It may be uncomfortable for some of you, but I wanted to talk about women's health and the gaps in healthcare and why the medical system often fails us. Now, I do want to clarify that I do recognize that medical professionals have a very difficult job. This isn't about blaming anyone. This is merely just opening a door, a conversation that needs to happen so that we can improve women's health, so that the gaslighting can stop, so that we can listen to women and we can generally improve overall health for women and move the needle forward. So here we go. Okay, so in order to understand why women continue to be underserved in Western medicine, I did a little bit of a deep dive to kind of look and see the role that women played, or in this case, didn't play in medicine. So let's go back, way back, because this is really important in order to understand why we are where we are today. Well, part of the reason, I'm sure there are many others. But let's look at the way women were viewed generally way back. So Aristotle, for example, said that the female body is the inverse of the male body with its genitalia turned outside in. Women were marked by their anatomical difference from men and medically defined as faulty, defective, and deficient. But women also possessed an organ of the highest biological and social value, the uterus. Anyway, so you can find all of the resources and the references at the bottom, but let's keep going. Okay, but that was ages ago, right? So let's move into the future a little bit and let's look at this study, which analyzes 16,329 images from 12 manuals currently recommended by 20 of the most prestigious universities in Europe, the United States, and Canada. Images of white men predominate in Western anatomy textbooks, which present them as a universal model of the human being. Okay, well, let's keep going. Okay. Hippocrates, who is considered the father of modern medicine, was around between 460 to 375 BC. However, women did not enter modern medicine until mid-19th century. Curious. Okay, let's rewind to 1993, which is the year that women were officially allowed to participate in clinical research. And in this article right here, why we know so little about women's health, the author does a fantastic job talking about the issues surrounding women in clinical research in depth. I'm going to link that below, but I wanted to read a little something from the end of the article to you. Just 8 years ago, in 2016, the NIH instituted a policy that requires researchers with NIH funding to collect data on biological sex differences in preclinical research and animal testing, analyze the data, and report the differences in the findings. That wasn't until 2016. Okay, now let's go through this timeline. 1977, the FDA creates a guideline to exclude women from clinical research. 1990, the NIH established the Office of Research on Women's Health, which leads various programs aimed at advancing research into women's health. 1993, the U.S. Congress passes a law requiring inclusion of women in NIH-sponsored clinical trials. 1994, the FDA establishes the Office of Women's Health, which is charged with promoting the inclusion of women in clinical trials and the advancement of women's health care. 2001, the Institute of Medicine releases a report that demonstrates how sex differences influence biology and should be studied as a variable in clinical research. 2022. A Harvard Medical School study finds that women as of 2019 were still substantially underrepresented in clinical trials for leading diseases. Okay, it's obvious that we can't change the past, but how do we change the future? How do we include more women in clinical research so that we can help our healthcare providers to be able to help us? Because I know that no doctor wants to look at their patient going through menopause and just tell them, sorry, that's just normal. You're going through menopause. That's what it is. Because is it? Let's do better, guys. Let's open the door to conversation and do better, because I know we can.